Let's go!
And we are live. What's going on, people? To another episode of the Off the Ball podcast with me, your host, Chris LeBron. That intro gets me fired up, man. Shout out to our guy,
Dude, that's
JP.
sick.
Yeah,
Sorry.
JP. Shout out to JP for making that intro. That gets me fired up. Get ready for a show. And took a few weeks off, but I'm back. I'm happy. I got a great panel with me today, so I'm very excited. We're going to talk about a bunch of things going on in the association. So let me introduce my great panel from the Off the Ball Network. Got a bunch of goats with me, so very excited about to do this. My man Steven, also the co-host of Draft Capital that we do covering NBA draft stuff. What's going on, my brother?
Not much, man. It's good to be here in the building with you and the rest of the great panel that you already alluded to. I'll let you bring them on, but I'm excited for today's show. A lot of great topics, and I don't know if there's enough time in the day to give us all of our takes, but we're gonna do our best.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I believe this is his first time on the Off the Ball podcast from the Ball Fake podcast. My guy, Nicely. What's going on, brother?
Not much. How you doing today, Chris?
I'm doing well, man. Excited about this show. And last but not least, the man, the myth, the legend, Jerg. What's going on, man?
Nothing much.
It's a four-letter word.
As Steven alludes to there, the first OTBN show I've been on since the move up here to Bristol. It's been a couple weeks now, and I'm glad to be back on the network. I told y'all you weren't gonna wait too long to see me.
There we go.
The viewers probably would want to wait longer, but no, I'm here. I'm ready, and let's get to it.
And by the way, we've said this to you a million times. Congratulations on that.
Thank
because
you.
that is an absolute, we're very happy for you, and you definitely earned it. You're one of the best out there. So we know you're going to kill it up in Bristol, and you're going to do your thing. And like I said, happy that you are on the show. So guys, and like I said, I'm very happy, very excited about this show. Very excited to talk about what's going on. There's a lot going on in the NBA. It's every day we get some type of news, that always gets, the Twitter world rolling and everything, social media buzz. So let's get right into it. And let's talk about two guys that have been in the trade, the trade rumors for a while now, and that's Damian Lillard and Ben Simmons. We hear with Ben, there's rumor that things are spicing up. It's getting spicy. It's we feel like maybe we got some traction finally, where for a while it was like nothing's happening. Like the Sixers are asking for 80 Lamborghinis. They're asking for Bitcoin. They're asking for unlimited stock in Tesla, and like they're just unrealistic things like for Ben Simmons, who hasn't even played this year, right? And Dame, obviously we've heard the rumors, and now with the team struggling mightily, they didn't really make any moves in the offseason that were like, hey, we're actually gonna try here, Dame. And it's like, no, they didn't really do anything to help Dame, and he has his struggles this year, battling injuries, and the team's obviously disappointed so far. So, Steven, I'll go with you first. Where do you think Dame and Ben ultimately end up? Do they stay put, or do you see them getting moved?
I mean, how far down the road are we looking here? Because if you're asking me about maybe this trade deadline, I would probably say Ben, out of the two of them, has more potential to be traded and to be moved. We're already starting to see rumors circulate again that teams are again interested in Ben Simmons, and they're looking at possible 2-3 team options to be able to get a deal done. Damian Lillard is still doing Damian Lillard things. He's saying that I don't want to go anywhere, that people who have my best interests at heart, y'all don't know me, so please stop using that line. And I've been guilty of that. Just like, Dame, let us save you from yourself. But I mean, the man is happy, allegedly, in Portland, and we have to take him at his word, So him saying I don't want to be moved, that usually means that he doesn't want to. NBA players have developed a language that suggests that they do want to be moved without outright saying they want to be. And Dame is not abiding by that code. So I think that he stays. Ben Simmons, on the other hand, he's been wanting to be moved. The team is, all of a sudden rumors are circulating again. So if there's rumors, that usually means that at least someone in their organization is fielding calls, listening to offers, and potentially looking to see what else they might be able to get in return for a trade. So right now, I think Ben Simmons is the one to be moved. Sacramento seems like one team that one could use a kick in the butt a little bit, so to speak, especially on the defensive end. They got the big enough contracts, they got the young enough players, and they got draft picks. And that's usually the key ingredients to make a deal happen. So Sacramento seems like a likely location for Ben Simmons.
And they got rid of Luke Walton. So
they got rid of Luke Walton, so that helps. The appeal of maybe playing in California. I mean, it's not LA, but it's something, so maybe going to play in the capital city there would be something that he would be interested in, and probably the most likely out of anything else between both of these players.
Nicely. What about you, man?
Well, in terms of Ben Simmons, it's kind of hard to tell because, we've kind of been surfaced with rumors the entire season. And, at one moment, it seems like they're kind of close on a deal. And then the next moment, it just Daryl Morey has just denied everything. And, for Ben Simmons' state, I don't know necessarily if, going to the Kings is a good move, but it would be a little bit interesting. That isn't necessarily one of the better front offices in the NBA, so I don't know how they would rebuild around him. But there is some decent pieces there. I don't know if De'Aaron Fox will be included in that trade. There might be a possibility, or maybe a Buddy Hield, but it's just really hard to tell at this point right now. And then in terms of Damian Lillard, I think, I agree with Steven as well. I think he more than likely stays put. We've never really seen, a superstar who was put in this exact same situation as Damian Lillard kind of, emphasize that he wants to stay in, this bad situation. And it's so weird because a lot of people want to see Dame succeed, and it just doesn't look like that's going to come into fruition in Portland. But it also seems like, Damian Lillard doesn't really care about what we think all that much either. So.
No, definitely not. Jared, what do you feel about these two players and where you think they might go?
I think Steven said it best. It's like we're all trying to just save Dame from himself. Like, dude, the situation is just untenable anymore. And it's like, I know he says, you people don't know me, and it's true. We really don't at the end of the day with these athletes. But it's like nobody in their right mind can look at that situation and think like he should be happy with everything going on. They fired Terry Stotts going into last offseason, and granted, I didn't disagree with firing him, but when you hire Chauncey Billups to replace him, it's like, oh, you might as well just kept Terry Stotts at that point. Like you said, Chris, they did nothing to their roster. They essentially brought back the same roster that going back to last season, once again, accomplished really nothing. Like you could say making the playoffs or is a good thing, but when you're constantly losing in the first round, as has been the tradition of the Damian Lillard Portland Trailblazers, aside from like 2 specific years, like how good can you feel about making the playoffs when it's the same result every time? I personally think, like, again, I've said this the entire time, Portland, I think, is set to be able to rebuild if they do finally flip the switch. You have the main piece that would get back the most assets in Dame, and then you have 2 secondary pieces who would also get back solid assets in CJ McCollum. Feel better, CJ McCollum, obviously, with his scary injury, and Yusuf Nurkic as well would get you back a pretty penny on the trade market. So, like, the pieces are there for Portland. It's just all about making that ultimate decision. The front office, had some issues, a little bit of a shakeup there recently with the general manager. So it's like nothing is good there. Like Dame is really trying to earn the brownie points of loyalty. Like he's hoping everyone is going to look back at his career and be like, at least he stayed loyal. But it's like, I don't think so, dude. Like I think everyone's just look back at this time and be like, you could have left. And at the end of the day, we could say for John Stockton and Patrick Ewing, it's like at the end of the day when they lost championships, they didn't get to win. But that's not because they self-destructed on themselves that they didn't make things happen. I think with Dame, we're kind of getting to the point. It's like you can make something happen now at the end of your career, and you're just not. And I don't really have any love lost personally for that situation. That's at least for Dame. In terms of Ben Simmons, I kind of agree with them. I think Ben Simmons is the most likely of the two at this point. Funny enough, at one point, way back in the offseason, you would like these two names were heavily linked to one another. That Ben Simmons would have been the piece in a Philadelphia trade for Lillard. How likely is that? I mean, who knows? Things can happen.
They've said they've gone on the record, right? We heard Woj said that any Ben Simmons for Damian Lillard, trade is not going to happen.
Right.
And that's what we've heard. Whether that's true or not, that's for I'm not 100% sure, but that's what they've said. And it's crazy to think that Ben Simmons at one point was almost traded for James Harden, and now his trade market is essentially we don't even know what he hasn't played. So what is his trade value?
Yeah, well, it's fluid at this point. Honestly, when you think about it, it's fluid. And I think Steven brings up a good point. Like at this point, if you're Philly, like you just have to cut your losses. Like I understand the mindset. Like they want to keep him because Ben Simmons, even without playing this year, it's like he's on paper a team can find him to be redeemable, but it's slowly approaching the point where it's just like they may have to just sell off and get
a stubborn GM too.
Yeah,
Morey is a very stubborn individual, and you got Ben Simmons who's very stubborn too. So you got two individuals stubborn, and I think if this was any other GM, maybe this Ben's already gone, but obviously Morey is very stubborn and all that. Steven, what were you gonna say?
Oh, I was just gonna say that we say we don't know what the market is, but at one point earlier in the season, and it's crazy to think that the season is still very young, right? But at one point earlier in this season, everyone, a lot of people even on our network were like, he has no trade value. He has no trade value. I was like, just wait, because as teams figure out how far away they are from playoffs, how far away they are from playoff contention or title contention or what have you, people are going to talk themselves into thinking, hey, what could we use? How about a 6'9", 6'10" defensive-minded playmaker who can rebound? And we can just kind of put players around him. And then everyone all of a sudden is going to be like, oh, yeah, that sounds like a really good player. Well, it's Ben Simmons, and he's been like that for his whole career. People just, the reluctance on shooting, I don't mean to get on a tangent here, but teams are going to talk themselves into thinking that they're a Ben Simmons away from making some sort of noise, because the rankings right now in the NBA season and in terms of standing, it's fluctuating a lot. It may just take the addition of a Ben Simmons to really change the power balance in the NBA right now. And I think a lot of free agent or front offices are looking at that right now and genuinely thinking about that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No, man. And it's like I said, it's going to be interesting because, people forget Ben Simmons is still a really good player. Guys, he's, I know he has his shortcomings, but like every player has shortcomings, right? And he's not a perfect player. And I just feel like he's been slandered heavily, but the man is an all NBA defender. Maybe should have won. I think he should have won Defensive Player of the Year last year because the man could guard multiple positions and he's locking up your team's best player. So there's still value in that. Whether how much his value is to be determined, but still value. You're still getting a good player. Like even with the flaws, you're still getting a really damn good player, and he could help shift the balance for a team that's a player away from taking that next step. Because like we said, the East. We got. It's we got 10 teams bunched in between maybe I think 12 teams bunched up between 6 games, so that could be the difference. Ben Simmons could be the difference between you getting in the playoffs or not. So that's going to be interesting to see how those two players handle. But like the Dame situation, it's ugly. It reminds me of KG back in the day, right? KG wanted to be that guy who wanted to be loyal and all that, but it's like, all right, dude, like your teams keeps losing and no playoffs, and it's like you're allowed to go. Like I think most people are like, Dame, if you ask for a trade or whatever, like you're 100%. Good. Like
he can leave a hero now. Yeah. Like anything he does, he's
Portland,
good.
Like you're a legend in Portland. You're gonna go down in the Mount Rushmore of Portland Trailblazers, right? Deservingly too, because what he's done for that team is remarkable. But hey, we want to see you win. We want to see you do great and be, be able to compete for championships. Or at least get to the conference finals regularly. We want to see him do well. So
he's got the free pass. That's the funny part. Like
he's got the whole pass.
Ever gotten it.
Exactly. How many guys don't have that ability? And we're giving like, yo, Dame, go. You're allowed. You're not gonna get slandered on social media like other guys would for leaving. You're good, bro. So like, I hope the situation gets handled. And but it's a tough day for Oregon. You know what? They lose their college football coach.
Had to plug Miami.
I had to do that. I'm very excited about that. Very excited about my new head coach, Mary Cristobal. But it's a tough day in Oregon. They taking some L's of late. All right, guys, give me a trade idea that you want to see? Is there a trade that you have that you boiled up that you think that you would like to see? Nice, so you go first.
Man, I don't know. I'm not 100% sure on this one, but I'm just curious what Jason Tatum and Ben Simmons will be able to accomplish. Now, I know neither one of them do we consider Jason Tatum to be, the leader of that team? I don't know necessarily. And I definitely don't think Ben Simmons would be the leader in that department as well, especially being, the guy that's traded there. But I kind of, it makes me salivate at the mouth a little bit just to see the idea of, Tatum and Ben Simmons as a tandem together, because essentially what Tatum and Brown bring to the table from an offensive perspective, it's kind of similar values, right? Both of them are prolific scorers, can give you a ton of offensive production inside, outside. Would like to see more free throw attempts out of, Tatum and obviously Jaylen Brown as well. But I don't think that, that type of duo is going to be able to get the job done, essentially. And, Celtics fans might be looking back and, kind of kicking themselves after, not having, what's his name, Brad Stevens trade for Ben Simmons, essentially. And I feel like, that duo, it's a little bit similar to, the issues that Kawhi Leonard and Paul George have. Both of those guys are, in their case, two-way players, but neither one of them are all that great in terms of, elevating the teammates and players around them. Obviously, Chauncey Billups, he's done a much better job in terms of, helping Kawhi Leonard specifically and Paul George, kind of develop and learn the nuances of the game from that perspective. But, I think if I'm Jason Tatum in the Boston Celtics, I potentially might take a swing at Ben Simmons. And that sounds extremely crazy, but I don't know.
Steven?
I don't know. I think that you do everything that you possibly can to make Brown and Tatum work. And, one would think that with the coaching change they had with bringing on Udoka after moving Stevens to the front office, you almost wonder how much of a hand Brad Stevens still has in the coaching of this team, because they don't really look much different at all between, the last season and this year, right? And
right.
Udoka got his first opportunity to be an NBA head coach, and we know sometimes that job comes with strings attached. I mean, you think about Derek Fisher when he coached the Knicks, right, Chris? Like,
no, don't remind me of that.
I'm just saying, right?
Oh my God, my heart just blew up. Like,
when he took that job, it was his one and only NBA head coaching opportunity, and he was brought in to coach under who? Right, Phil Jackson.
That was he was a puppet. Yeah, he was essentially a puppet.
Exactly, right. So you wonder if Ime Udoka. I'm not saying that he is or isn't. I don't have any insight or whatever, but it doesn't look much different, right? So, I still think that you try to make those two work, but maybe you bring in a head coach with a little bit more of a. I mean, you all due credit and respect to Udoka. I'm glad he got his opportunity, but maybe a coach that has a little bit more. Weight under his belt, if that makes sense, right? Someone who's kind of proved it at a level to where players can look and be like, okay, I know that this is a good quality NBA level head coach, right? So maybe that's there. I'll give you two trades that I would like to see. One of is kind of a bigger one. One is kind of a smaller one. Let's start with the smaller one first. I would like to see Christian Wood traded to Sacramento, right? And
absolutely.
I think that this would be a good trade because it frees Marvin Bagley. It gets him to go to a young team, and it gives him as much opportunity as he wants to play however he wants with little to no criticism at all, right? Yes. So you bring Marvin.
That's a good trade. Yep.
You bring Marvin Bagley over to a young team. He's got Şengün that he can, play with as well and around. And there's a lot of pressure and expectations between Porter Jr. and Green there, but Bagley gets to play a little bit more up and down, and then the combination of a Christian Wood and a Rashawn Holmes in a front court would just be so much fun to see for basketball nerds like myself and like y'all. I would love to see those two play next to each other. The bigger trade I would like to see, I've been talking about it a lot, Bradley Beal to Atlanta. Make it happen. Bring Bradley Beal out of Washington.
Been talking about that for like a year and a half, 2 years.
Been talking about it for a while, but Atlanta's got all these pieces. They're figuring things out still, but man, I really feel like Bill and Trae Young together would be so nasty, especially in that offense they run. Bradley Beal wouldn't have to be as much on the ball, but there's good screen setters. He's a good cutter, and plus it gives someone it gives Trae Young somebody to reliably create, because right now Collins is
number 2. He needs a reliable
exactly
number.
Because Cam Reddish having a great second season.
Up and down.
He's not consistent, right? And Collins, he can only do so much for the position that he plays, right? So I think bringing in a Bill would help resolve that. It would elevate them as far as their standings and how seriously they need to be considered as the title contender.
Yep. Yeah, I think Atlanta's kind of like, they're kind of like stuck, right? Because they have so many good young assets, right? They got players that you would love, like good young up and coming players, but it's like they have too many. And that's a good problem to have, but it is a problem because you're trying to. I mean, they just drafted Jalen Johnson and they got Sharif Cooper, who they drafted. I mean, they had a hell of a draft.
Yep.
We talked about how good their draft was, but they
brought in good free agents too.
Yeah, they got some pieces like Bogdanovich, Gallo, but it feels like they have so many guys. They're like, who's that number 2 with Trae? Trae's having a really good season. People forget he is having a really, really
after
good season.
Struggling in the early going with the new rule changes.
I think he's shooting around 45%, 38% from 3. He's having, I think he was leading the league in assists at one point. He's definitely 2 or 3 in assists right now. I
think he had like 5 straight games with 25 points.
Yeah. So he's having a good year, but he needs that number 2. And I've talked about Beal to Atlanta for a while too. Like it just makes so much sense. They have enough pieces where they can make a big deal to get Beal and still have pieces around them. They're not gonna. It's not one of the situations where like one of these teams where they have to give up a bunch of pieces and they won't have enough to surround them. Atlanta's got plenty. Like you said, they got Sharif and Jalen Johnson like right behind them. Or if they
got Herter, they got Hunter, they got
like if they want to trade Gallo, they have Bogey. They have so many pieces to make the deal and still have a lot around them to be a competitive team. Right now, they got to figure stuff out because they're 500 right now. And they're kind of stuck in the
they're
mud,
coming around a little bit because they started off really weak and they're starting to figure things out now. I got one more that just kind of came to mind.
Shoot.
I can't take too much credit for it because I think I saw it on Twitter. I've done it in 2K though in a previous year, so I can still.
If it happens in 2K, it can happen in real life.
So Miles Turner, I know that he's real hot on the trade block right now. Would love to see him in Memphis. That would be an excellent move in my opinion.
Yep, that would be a good fit. They got Steven Adams right there right now patrolling. I mean, a stretch big who could shoot, block some shots. He needs to. I think he forgets that he's 250 pounds.
I don't think he does. We talk. This is a whole episode.
He be coming off screens like thinking he's like a swingman. It's like, dude,
he's playing
7 foot.
He's playing next to Sabonis, who's a paint monster, right? Like that's a whole schematics thing.
Yeah. It's like, dude, like you're big. Like get down low and bang down there. But that would be a interesting trade for Memphis to make that. I think that'd be a good move for them. Jerg, and any trade ideas you have on your mind?
Yeah, quite a few, and this is kind of like bleeding over into one of the topics on the rundown was today. But I spoke about Portland as a team that I think could rebuild, and I think the Indiana Pacers are a team that have plenty of assets in their roster that they could just sell off to teams that need it. I think that from myself, Steven mentioned him, Sabonis. I would love to see the Warriors make a trade for Domantas Sabonis. I think that you have the just pure perimeter, scoring of Steph. You have Draymond being his all-around self again and being an amazing defensive player. Clay coming back, it's a wait and see how he really is. But you just need him to be a shooter at this point. Like you just need his shooting to still be there. And even with how long he's been gone, I don't think that he'll be any less of a three-point threat. And I just think an inside presence on this team of such an elite caliber like Sabonis would be big for the Golden State Warriors. Because the Warriors, they have a lot of young assets. They have collected draft picks in previous years. And, you have Wiseman, you have Moody, you have Kuminga. And you don't need to trade all those guys to get a Sabonis, I don't feel. And you have a couple future draft picks because, the Warriors aren't necessarily a team that have been, they're not like the usual contending teams where it's like they constantly are trading their first-round picks in the future to get guys for now. No, they're pretty stocked up. So I think Golden State going after Sabonis would be an intriguing move. And Sabonis isn't just an inside player at all. He could step out, shoot. He could get assists. A lot of people forget Jokic was amazing with the triple doubles in his MVP season. Sabonis, as a big man, had a lot of triple doubles. At one point last season, he was averaging 8 assists a game. A lot of people forget. And just his teammates started making less and less shots. So this stat went down, but he's like consistent 20 and 10 and keeping get you 5-6 assists per game. I think Steve Kerr would love to work with a guy like that. He'd easily be the most talented big that Golden State has had in a long time. And I think his style would actually fit with Steph, with Clay and guys like that. And, to just continue it, I could see Malcolm Brogdon being traded like kind of anywhere. Malcolm Brogdon, I think, is like such a glue guy. Like you could put him in anywhere, and I think he'll just fit. Like Steven mentioned Memphis. Malcolm Brogdon in Memphis to be that guy next to John Morant, I think
he feels Memphis.
I was going to say
he feels like a Memphis type of
Dallas.
Type of player.
Yeah.
Brogdon in Dallas would be nice.
Yeah, or Dallas, like he could do, he could put up 29, but he could grab 5, 6, 7, 8 rebounds. He could get 5, 6, 7, 8 assists. Like Dallas has needed a secondary playmaker to Luka for so long. Like Brogdon could be the guy, and Karis LeVert as well. Like he's just a scorer. You could send it to a team that needs some more scoring. I just think Indiana has a treasure trove of guys that, like, again, the rebuild is right there for you. Like you have the pieces to set up for yourself, and I think the Pacers, there's always two things that I hate to see. I hate to see a team that doesn't take advantage of the assets they have to be able to restart and doesn't take advantage of the assets they have to take that next step. Because you mentioned Atlanta, Steven, with the Bradley Beal thing. Atlanta, don't be Boston. For a good 5 years,
exactly.
Boston had the extra pieces, the extra picks, the extra everything to get a superstar. They never did. Look where we're at now. We got people saying that they should trade one of Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum, man. Like, you can't let it get to that point. So I love Bradley Beal to Atlanta. Like our whole network has been saying that trade idea for a year plus now, and make it happen. Because like you guys said, you can trade some of the pieces you have, but you still have guys there because you've done such a good job of building that roster with depth.
And Bill isn't doing as like he's still a good player. Don't get me wrong, but like he's not doing as well this season. So like maybe that helps Washington look and see like, okay, we're successful, but we're not getting the best Bill that we could be right now. Maybe we can add some pieces. Maybe we can add some draft picks and long term this thing where Atlanta might be able to get him on a cheaper deal now more so than ever, right? So it makes a lot of sense. It's the only hang up is right. They both play in the Southeastern Conference, right? So like that, or the Southeastern Division of the Eastern Conference, right? So that's the only thing is that Washington's going to have to see Bill more frequently, as an opponent than he would almost anywhere else.
Yeah, and it's crazy how Washington's having so much success with Beal not being, that dominant scorer we're used to see him, and Spencer Dinwiddie not, shooting below 40% and all that, and they're still, 3 games over 5, 4 games.
Bill's only 17th in scoring right now, so like he's awful. He's
awful. He's over the cliff. He should retire. But all that. It's crazy how they're doing that with. At one point he was shooting 17% from 3. He was shooting 17% from 3, but
up to 26 now.
Up to 26. So he's bumped up the 3-point percentage. But I want to go to the next topic here, and I want to go. It's sticking with the theme of trades because it feels like trades have been very heavy and all that. And I want to go with a buyers or sellers. So I'm going to give you some teams, guys, and nicely I'll start with you first. I'm going to give you 3 teams I have in mind, and you tell me if they're buyers or sellers at the deadline. First, my beloved New York Knicks. Do you think they're buyers or sellers at the deadline?
Man, that's extreme. I don't know. I think it depends on exactly what assets they would get in return. If we're talking about like a Damian Lillard trade, they would absolutely be buyers, obviously. But in terms of dealing having any cooperation with other teams in trades, I just do not know exactly yet. But you would think that more than likely with them digressing in the Eastern Conference this year, they would more than likely want to be buyers. So yeah, I think they're buyers at the trade deadline.
Okay. The Boston Celtics.
Boston, once again, I think they are another organization that absolutely has to be buyers. I mean, they got to shake something up. They've been running that small ball lineup with Tatum and some of those other glue guys for the longest, and it doesn't compare to when they had Jaylen Brown and Gordon Hayward and Kemba Walker. So I mean, yeah, of course, I think they're buyers as well because they also have one of the worst benches in the entire NBA. There's not a lot of support for Tatum and Brown. So yeah, absolutely, those guys have to be buyers.
So you're telling me Enos Freedom Cancer? I mean, Cantor is not the answer off the bench.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Okay, and last, the Lakers.
Oh man, you would think that they would be buyers, but I don't know exactly what assets they're going to get in order to have any marginal difference happen. But I guess once again, this is another team that has to essentially be buyers at the trade deadline.
Okay, Steven, the Knicks, buyers or sellers?
So here's the crazy thing: is like technically this is the second year of a rebuilding team, right? And I think that sometimes, all due respect to all of our Knicks
no, it's
fans,
okay, Steven. You could say it.
All due
they
respect,
need to know. They need to know.
All due respect to all of the Knicks fans that are a part of our network or associated, through the people at our network who tune in to our show. All due respect, the Knicks are freaking still in a second year of rebuild. Like they hot tracked it last season, right? So you shouldn't be upset about anything technically that you're seeing this year.
You're upset about everything.
I'm not.
We're upset about everything.
You shouldn't be upset about much because, especially with the moves that y'all made. And Chris, I remember you weren't a fan of the draft grade that I gave y'all or the offseason grade that I gave y'all, but it looks like some of the moves that were made weren't that great of moves. Like what did you say the other day, man? Is like you need perimeter defenders. You mean to tell me that Evan Fournier is not a good perimeter defender? Like that's not a surprise, So
him and Kemba, like
the thing, like no knock against the Kemba signing. No knock against the Kemba signing because it was a great value deal. You didn't break the bank to bring in a Kemba Walker. It's a flyer. It's a flyer contract. You hit big on that. You're a genius. You missed, and it's like, almost anybody would have signed Kemba at that price, right? And y'all needed a point guard, so to address the positional need. I don't beat that up, but like the amount of money y'all paid on Evan Fournier, the draft that y'all had, But again, this is the second year of a rebuilding team. Technically, like I would stay the course. If anything, I might look at some of these pieces like a Mitchell Robinson that you might be able to sell. Maybe look at doing that. Maybe look at some of the smaller end contracts that you might be able to get some assets for, like second round draft picks, hot commodity in today's NBA. So maybe you start looking at that.
Yes. All right. Boston Celtics.
You have to buy. There's a lot of pressure. I think, nicely, I think he put it best is that there's so much pressure on Jason Tatum to win. There's pressure on Jaylen Brown to win. But what do you have to move? You have a big contract in Al Horford, Robert Williams, Grant Williams. They're nice players, but how much can you realistically get? Romeo Langford, I think that by this season, his trade value is going down and down and down. Eventually, like he's just going to be a flyer player that someone's going to take, right? So, I mean, Peyton Pritchard, does he have any trade value? I would look at almost anybody who has value and see what we could do to upgrade this roster if I'm Boston.
And lastly, the Lakers.
If it's me, this team is awful. I'd sell. I sell right now. I know that I got LeBron James on this team, and it's taboo because every team that he goes to is on the quest to help him become the greatest player of all time. Anthony Davis, I'm so sorry. Like, we got to find somewhere else. You got to find somewhere else for this dude to play. I know that everybody's after Russell Westbrook.
AD trade.
I know that everybody's after Russell Westbrook. Is he playing unlike anything that we've seen from Russell Westbrook the past 2, 3, 4 seasons? No. Nope. Like, you knew that this was Russell Westbrook. Is Anthony Davis playing anything like what we've seen the previous 2, 3, 4 seasons? No. Is this what the Lakers signed up for long term? No. So Anthony Davis, if he's not a number one, we know that. LeBron James is only getting older. We know that. I mean, if it's me, Jerg, I know you might be a big fan of this. You're up for teams making moves, at the appropriate times. I'm sorry, Anthony Davis, he's not shooting. He's scoring well around the basket, which is cool, but he doesn't want to play that position. You know what I mean? So a little bit of an identity crisis for him. But if I'm LA, I know I might have to trade LeBron James too, but you got LeBron James and it's not doing anything. You got Anthony Davis. It's not doing anything. History has shown us the previous 2, 3 seasons that this is about as good as this team is. And for whatever reason, because we see LeBron James is on this roster, we constantly trick ourselves into thinking that they're going to be a top Western Conference team. Past 2-3 seasons hasn't been the case. Let's go ahead and just do this. If I'm LA, I'm selling. And I know it's against the rules, and you're not allowed to do it. But if it was me, I would do it.
Yeah, and it I don't know what made them think getting a bunch of 35-year-olds and thinking you have LeBron James and it's going to work.
It's the recipe for a LeBron James team. Every team does it. Every team that he has ever been on for a championship hunt does it.
Yeah, I just didn't get it. And then some people were trying to be like, well, young teams don't win and veteran teams win. It's like, but not this old. We got like Trevor Ariza is what 42. I'm surprised they didn't go after Udonis Haslem in a sign and trade or something. Like it's like what's going on? Like
no, you can't pry the OG out of my name.
Yeah, he's there for life. He's gonna get 1 year deals till he's 50, and play 5 minutes a year, But it's just crazy how I didn't see how this would fit. And then when they got Westbrook, it was like, oh wow, okay.
And just be completely transparent, preseason, I had the #1 in my Western Conference rankings. It's not like I was just like waiting for this moment.
Yeah,
I tricked myself into thinking, okay, I got LeBron James and Anthony Davis. I had a guy like Russell Westbrook, who hasn't been as bad as what a lot of people are making him out to be.
He's been better than the last few games. Yeah, he's been better.
I tricked myself into thinking that they'll figure it out, and here we are. And looking back at the previous 2 years, this is the team. Like this is it.
Yeah, and to think all those young pieces they had at one point, Jerg, like they had a bunch of young pieces that have gone on to be pretty good NBA players. Right. And, but when you have LeBron James on your team, it's win now mode. And we're seeing, you have to sacrifice to win a championship, right? And they won a championship and they're going to be happy, right? But it comes with a lot, like we talk about, even with like in baseball, like the Cubs, right? Obviously, they went a billion years without winning a championship, but they had to gut their roster, their farm system, and now look at them. They're in total rebuild mode. So, like, I wouldn't be surprised in a year or so, whenever LeBron decides to go, like, this team might just be in shambles because of the assets they gave up and no real young talent that you're really going to be high on. So, Jerk, Knicks, Boston, Lakers, buy or sell at the deadline.
So I would like to say this, that I know of a certain Albanian who lives in Connecticut now that pointed out, hey, Tom Thibodeau teams regress after year one. I wish that guy was there, but sadly I have to be here instead of him. So I would just like to point out that yes, like I said, Tom Thibodeau teams regress after year one. I'm sorry, but I warned you all. Now, the Knicks, I'll only say buyers because the thing with me is that when I say seller, like in my mind, there needs to be assets that if I'm the other team, I'm like, oh, I gotta have it. Like, there's no one on this Knicks team right now that it's like, I gotta have that guy. Like Mitchell Robinson is a fine player, but it's not like that's not someone that I'm like pining for. Emmanuel Quickley is good, but his shooting percentages have regressed from last season. So there's him. Yeah, Obi Toppin is fine, where it's like maybe it's getting to the point where Obi can be like a nice piece in a trade for you. But again, that's if you're a buying team now is the Knicks. That's if you're bringing.
Why would you want to trade Obi anyway? Right now, to me, like that's where I'm at.
I wouldn't want it. I think he's unlocked. So there's so much unlocked potential with Obi Toppin, and to me, like I want to keep that because you see in glimpse, like even last night against the Toronto Raptors, like. You see, like, even though he missed some perimeter shots, like, it wasn't like it was bad shot selection. Like, it just didn't go down. But it's like, I see a lot of untapped potential.
This is what I was worried about for the Knicks is they get good for one season, man. And then it's like buy up everybody.
Yeah. Expectation. Well, that's what and I've talked to you guys about the Knicks. Like, and I keep it real with the Knicks. Like,
I know.
What did I tell you? Like, expectations may hurt this team this year, right? Randall's no longer under the radar, right? All these guys are no longer the Knicks are under the radar. Like last year, they benefited a lot, right? No fans. To me, that's big. Jerk, you're in New York. You were living in New York City. You know how the expectations of the fans and how they are, and that could be really intimidating. Playing at the Garden, hearing either a lot of boos, a lot of cheers, and that could be intimidating and all that. And that they didn't have to. Randall didn't have to hear that last year for most of the season.
Yeah, and like that's the thing with the Knicks. At the end of the day, it's like whatever expectations were set upon them, that's That's what's dictating everyone's response now. Like, even myself, I'll admit I had relative high expectations. I believe okay, they should be a regular playoff team now because we have the play and it's all muddled now. Like, I believe the Knicks to at least be anywhere from 4 to 6, and I think that's a fair expectation going on with last season. But like you said, and normally this is funny because I worked in NCAA at an NCAA school for a while, so I'm used to hearing this more so in college terms. But scouting reports, it's a real thing where when you go from not being on the opposing team scouting report at all to being like number 1, number 2. That's a huge difference. Last season, Emmanuel Quickly was not on team scouting reports. He just wasn't. Last season, RJ Barrett wasn't top 2 in team scouting reports on a nightly basis. Obi Toppin. Now, granted, like maybe he's benefiting this season from it. He wasn't anywhere on a scouting report last season.
Oh,
like,
no, you didn't even think about him. Yeah, no,
exactly.
You weren't even thinking about Obi Toppin.
Like that's a real thing, I think. And now that teams know, like, oh, Quickly can be a spark plug off the bench. Oh, Julius Randle is the number 1 guy. We know this. And look how Nate McMillan and Atlanta exploited that last season and focused the defense on him. And look how much he struggled back in the playoffs. Like, that's a real thing when teams figure you out. We always say this in like the NFL, especially with like rookie, like when guys go from rookie year to sophomore year. The league knows you now, and it's on you to bounce back. And I think right now the Knicks need to be given the breath to bounce back. Like, I think they've gone through these first 25 or so games. Teams are figuring them out. Now the Knicks need to counter. Now, is Tom Thibodeau a good counter guy? Remains to be seen. But I will just tentatively put them as a buyer for now. Boston, I think the others have said it best. They don't have a choice. They have to be a buyer. They're in that window. Like they don't have. There's not a lot of assets there. Kind of like what Steven pointed out. Unless you're going to be, very bold and trade Brown or Tatum, like that. Those are the 2 most valuable pieces they have. Like it's those 2 and then everyone else. And it's like those guys. You can only send them in a deal if one of the top 2 are attached. So it's just like it's a complicated thing over in Boston. Brad Stevens, man, like the challenge was just to be better than Danny Ainge as a general manager, and it's like
it's a tougher job than I think Stevens probably anticipated. And like we mentioned before, right? We just a few years ago, Boston was like, oh, they're going to be in the Eastern Conference Finals every year. Like we thought, Tatum and Brown's good enough, and Marcus Smart's a sub, and they got these good young players, Romeo Langford, all these good young players, Grant Williams, Robert Williams, all these good young pieces. They're gonna be, and if they had one more little piece,
and that's the thing.
We talked about how many times did we talk about just if they just get a Miles Turner. How much that can impact this team, and then we know Danny Ainge just like, let's trade for Miles Turner, but give us everyone else. Like wait, we were gonna do Miles Turner. It's like, well, no, we want everyone else. I was like, no.
But I think now looking back at that trade deal, I think that Indiana would move T.J. Warren and Miles Turner for anybody else coming out of Boston now. Like in hindsight, like that might have been the best deal that Indiana might get now.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Right.
So,
but
the Lakers are last.
It's hindsight 2020 because of the injury when it comes to TJ Warren. Like I will say this, I never bought into TJ Warren being that real of a threat because my team exposed him come the playoffs back in the bubble. But at the same time,
he was fun. Bubble DJ Warren is probably like up there with Linsanity and like other like blips in the radar. Like they had like there was few moments where like, oh my god, they look like the best player in the day. Linsanity, like Jeremy Lin looked like the greatest point guard. I mean, he was hitting buzzer beaters off Kobe Bryant and Toronto. Like that was fun, but like it goes in that like
he renegotiated SNY's contract with Time Warner Cable at that point. Like that, Jeremy Lin was the reason why SNY stayed on Time Warner.
He saved SNY. Boom. There we go, man. He's saving networks and all that.
Exactly. But
in the Lakers last, Jerg.
So I'm only going to call them a seller for this reason. And it's not the seller kind of like Steven where it's like they're going to trade everyone off.
Blow off, yeah.
I believe it's going to be, I'm trying to make sure my timeline is correct here. Remember the 2018 Cavaliers, how they essentially hit that entire roster reset at the deadline? I think I wouldn't be surprised if this Lakers team does something. I mean, you have the same general manager that was a part of the 2018 Cavaliers reset. Yeah. So, and if that joke went over your head in the audience, it's LeBron. You have the same guy.
He traded his best friend. He was like, "Hey man, this ain't working out." So, I mean, I'm gonna send you back. My bad. We messed up. Go back to Miami.
So thank you, Bron. But there was that there were those were some spectacular deals too. Like they traded Isaiah Thomas essentially for Jordan Clarkson and Larry Nance Jr., which is like looking back, it's like, dang, that was a pretty good deal. Like I wouldn't be surprised if there's some sort of roster reset with the Lakers come the deadline. Now, what the pieces are, who knows? Because kind of like to your point, Chris, if LeBron, because some people are actually starting to get concerned now that LeBron might retire earlier than we all believe. And if he does, like you're then bullish on wanting to trade the few young pieces you have. Because do you really want to trade Taylor Horton-Tucker and Malik Monk, and even though he hasn't played yet this season, but Kendrick Nunn, do you really want to trade those guys right now on the off chance? I think it's less than a 5% chance, but like, let's say LeBron retires after this season. Do you want to trade the few young pieces you have left? Or would you rather keep them, let them play with AD, see how it plays out? Like, is it this whole mishmash of things where it's like, I don't like, it's very dependent on what the Lakers are going to do. But at the end of the day, like that team will bend to the whim of LeBron. So I'm expecting them to make deals. What deals exactly? Who knows? But yeah, I would expect them to sell off some pieces.
Yeah, all three of these teams that I mentioned are in some pretty tough spots. Like I said, we thought Boston would be the kings of the Eastern Conference, and they just haven't figured it out.
Now they're literally the kings of the Eastern Conference.
Now they are. And you never want to be the kings of anything. The kings. Like The Rock said. The best part about Sacramento is that in about an hour, The Rock is going to leave Sacramento. That's the best part for most people is leaving Sacramento, because it's just they're just a mess and all that. And De'Aaron Fox is another guy that may have to save from Sacramento and all that. But it's going to be interesting to see what these three teams do. Steven, you're 100% right on the Knicks and all that. Like, it is year 2. Like, this team was bad just 2 years ago, like really bad, really the worst off season at that moment. Maybe in Knicks, and Knicks have had a lot of bad off seasons, but like that was maybe the most down point in Knicks history, where they struck out on everyone and they didn't hit the lottery and all that, and they kind of had to be forced to be like, hey, you got to do it the old-fashioned way. You have good scouting, you got to find good players and all that.
It's exactly what I was worried about.
Yeah, and it's getting off to a little bumpy start. It's not going, but like it could be worse. It could be a lot worse, and just like patient, but it's hard. Obviously, New Yorkers are not very patient. They get that little bit of success, and this is what I was very worried about. That little bit of success, what happens when things get a little, messy, and how that. So everyone went from posting Julius Randle's son, like, oh, look at his little kid. We love Julius Randle's son. Now everyone fucking hates Julius Randle, and they don't post his son no more. They hate Tom Thibodeau, and I also think with the Knicks, not to go on Knicks, but like to me, the RJ Barrett's progression or lack of progression as a player, I think has really hurt the way you view the Knicks long term. Because to me, my biggest thing going into the season was like, okay, Julius Randle is he's definitely going to regress. To an extent, right? He wasn't going to be that same player last year, right? I don't think that was realistic that he was going to do that again. Maybe, but to me, what they needed someone to pick up that was RJ. They needed RJ to take that step, right? Because if he takes that step, that gives you more hope for the future. Like, okay, all right, we're definitely on the right path. He's regressed. Now he's had some good games here and there, but he hasn't taken that step, and I think that's hurt the Knicks. He's also up for an extension soon, and I think they're young players that people were high on. Mitchell Robinson, another guy. They're not as valuable as we thought, right? And they've definitely they're
well, and Thibodeau is like really bullish on playing young dudes a lot of minutes. Like that's no secret either.
Yeah. And the Thibodeau effect, like Jerg, you mentioned, right? Year 1's always beautiful, right? Minnesota, hey, playoffs, and then we've seen in Chicago, and this is what I was afraid. This is my worst fear as a Knicks fan, was all this, and let's hopefully they can get through this wave, but we'll see what happens. All right, so I'll give you the final topic, and like I said, I appreciate you guys. I got Jerg, Steven, nicely, all joining me for another episode of the Off the Ball podcast. All right, so let's play a little. Let's play. How the stock market goes up and down and all that. So we're gonna play a little stock, star market game. So, guys, gonna give me a guy that you're buying stock in, and a guy that you're taking your stock out. All right, so let's play this game nicely. Let's go first. Who are you investing in? And who are you taking all your money out of?
Well, in terms of just relying on their offensive production, at some point I do feel like this player will come along to a certain degree, but I think I'm going to pull out stock in RJ Barrett because I think New York, to a certain degree, I feel like they're asking just a little bit too much out of him. I mean, maybe rightfully so, because you're in a situation where they don't necessarily want to win now, but they do want to stay competitive enough and, showcase to other teams that, if you do enter the, Damian Lillard sweepstakes, this is a guy that, is going to be a viable trade asset. In terms of guys that I'm going to buy stock in, man, off the top of my head, I can't really think of anybody right now, honestly. You might have to come back to me for that one, Chris.
All right, I'll come back to you nicely on that. All right, Jerg.
So if I have to buy into a player, I didn't realize how good of a season he was actually having because he's in that cesspool known as Orlando. But Cole Anthony, Cole Anthony's balling out, man. He's averaging like 25-5 or 26-5, something along those lines.
Season,
and it's the funny part because Orlando coming in, we had worries that the guard position was so muddled and so clustered there that kind of like Philly was doing with like centers a couple of years ago, where it's like, who's going to separate themselves? And Cole Anthony's done a good job at separating themselves. Like if I had to pick a guy who like I'm buying into Cole Anthony because I think not this season, but I think next year when it's like the third year of his contract and Orlando still has no idea what on God's green earth that they're doing, I could see a situation where a team like tries to offer some sort of trade. It's like, hey, let's get him on our team because we need a guard here, like a young guard that's as talented as he is. Like I could see that situation happening. Maybe even not if in his third year, maybe at the final year of his contract. But yeah, I like Cole. I can Cole Anthony to that, or they clear up the guard situation there, and he's like the guy. But that's expecting competence. I'm not exactly going to do that. So that's what I'm buying into. Buying out, like pulling out. I don't have a player. I have a team, the Washington Wizards. I said from the start, I never bought into the hot start that this team had. I always told my friends, it's like, never forget. I forget what season exactly it was, but there was a season early in the 2010s where the Utah Jazz started 15-5 and missed the playoffs. So a 15-5 team missed the playoffs. You expect me to, whatever they were at the start, like 8-3, 9-4, whatever. You expect me to believe that they're going to make it? Heck, Orlando had a start years ago. They started 9-4 in the playoffs. Like, I'm not going to buy into a team that's having a good month and a half. I always akin this, but as a Heat fan, my team was like 7-9 to start last season's shortened year, and with a bunch of injuries and COVID issues. And what did we do? We still made the playoffs. So it's like I don't buy into these first 20 games or so because I think there's too much more to look at and digest. And I'm not buying into Washington. And we're starting to see now how inconsistent they are. They'll only win by 2 against OKC. They'll lose badly to the Spurs, who are nowhere near a playoff team right now. They will beat Detroit, yes, but then they'll lose to a real team. Like, it's just this is the exact expectations. This is why I love Steven saying that Bradley Beal to Atlanta, because then that's the start of their rebuild. Because you're looking at all these guys in Washington. Like, I guess this completes the holy trinity of teams that are ready to rebuild that I've talked about this episode. It's Portland, it's Indiana, and it's Washington. Because Montrezl Harrell, Kyle Kuzma, all those KCP, all those guys have built up their trade value this year. Where if you're Washington, you could completely sell them all. Like, you
sell high.
You could sell high on all these guys, and you could get from those 3 and the Bradley Beal deal, you could get God knows how many first-round draft picks. Like
you're looking like maybe Oklahoma City, Houston Rockets.
I was just about to say you could be the Sam Presti of this year's trade deadline if you do this right. So I would pull out of Washington. I would buy into a rebuild, but I would pull out of what their current record is because I don't buy them as.
But I think they're going to believe that they are like a playoff team, and they may be fool's gold, and they might be stuck like thinking they're a playoff team, and then realize, oh crap, we're not really as good as. In these first 26, 15, 11, like I said, I don't think they're as good as I agree with you. I don't think they're as good as what we see, and they might just, might not sell at all and just be like, oh, we're all in, and then they flutter, they flutter late in the season, and then like, well, we are who we thought we are, who we were supposed to be, we are who we thought we are, in the beginning. So, that's gonna be interesting to see what they do. All right, Steven.
All right, so player that I'm selling on, I'll keep this short because I already talked about that they should trade him, but sell all of your Anthony Davis stock. Just go ahead and sell it all. I just won a ring and checked out. And again, I know that you can point at numbers and be like, Steven, this, and this. Okay, that's fine. Tell me how that's working out. Player that you should buy in, though, getting back to the positive. There's a number of ways that I could go on this, right? But one guy that I was super low on him on the draft. And I'm so glad that I'm wrong because I'm loving the way that he's playing this year.
I think I know who you're going to say.
Desmond Bane.
Yeah.
Desmond Bane for the Memphis Grizzlies right now is averaging, let me see here. He's averaging 16.3 points per game. He's shooting 47% from the floor, 40% from deep, 91% from the line on, just a little over an attempt a game. He's giving you 4 rebounds, 2 assists, and a steal. Just a phenomenal guy, phenomenal player. And between he and Dillon Brooks, they have helped keep the Memphis Grizzlies from looking like an absolute train wreck since they lost, John Morant due to injury. So Desmond Bane, I know that the market is affecting it. I know his name is affecting it. And there's just no coverage for the Memphis Grizzlies really. But Desmond Bane, buy some stock in him. I know Darius Garland is getting a lot of buzz. There's a number of players that are getting buzz, but Desmond Bane needs to be right up there with them.
Yep, Desmond Bane is been phenomenal. And like you said, he's helped John Morant being out. People were like, uh-oh, is Memphis gonna go through that, that fall? And they beat a team by 70 points?
Yeah, like the most ever in NBA history. Yeah.
A professional basketball team lost by 70 points without their best, going against the team's best player not playing. Like, just think about that. Like,
that was a professional team that was on the other side.
I don't know if I think they got relegated. I think they got relegated. They got bumped down after that. They went to the G League for a few games to be like, all right, that's unacceptable. I think that should happen. If you lose by 70 in the NBA, you should have to go to the G League and be like, all right, humble pie, you stay in the G League and learn your lesson, because that's unacceptable.
Think about what you did. Yeah.
Think about what you did. That's timeout. That's the timeout you should get. Like, go to the G League, play a few games, and be like, retool and get back, because that's unacceptable. But my guys that I'm going to buy stock, and a guy that, Steven, you said you weren't high on Desmond Bane coming out. I was with this Darius Garland.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't crazy about him. The injuries he had. He's absolutely phenomenal. I mean, Colin Sexton going down, obviously that was a tough blow for Cleveland. And I thought, okay, maybe they'll get back to reality. And they still might eventually come down to reality. But, man, he has played absolutely phenomenal. I mean,
you could buy that team right now. You can buy Cleveland.
I mean, I don't know about you guys. That whole team, I might have to buy stock in, because I thought they're on the right path. But I think it was still another year or two before they maybe they'll finally be something. And it's like, oh, wow. Like, I mean, people were questioning, they get marketing, right? People were like, oh, well, how's marketing going to fit with Mobley? And people were already questioning how Jared Allen and Mobley were going to fit, right? And then you add marketing, it's like, well, okay, this does definitely not going to fit. And they have, absolutely.
Ricky Rubio coming off the bench.
Ricky Rubio has just orchestrated everything. He is such an underrated, underappreciated player, and doesn't get the respect because he can't shoot, blah blah blah, all that nonsense. I mean, but
he was supposed to be coming into the
draft. And I think what always hurt Ricky Rubio is that Steph Curry, right? The fact that Minnesota took him right before Steph Curry,
and Johnny
right?
Flynn,
and Johnny Flynn. Johnny Flynn hasn't been in the league in a long time, but I think that always hurt, Ricky Rubio, where the guy's been a pretty good player in this league for a while, and you see what he's added to this Cleveland team, and Kevin Love finally buying in. What you thought, he some selfishness we've seen from him. Especially last year. Remember that play he had last year where he just gave up, and it was I think that was just real low. And he's finally, bought in and be a real team player, which is good. So that whole team might buy low. I'm on whip nicely, and I gotta take all my RJ Barrett stock down. I gotta take it all out. I put a lot in this off. I thought that he'd take that year 3 jump. It hasn't been the case, and I just don't buy it long term that he's going to be the answer the Knicks need him to be. I think he's gonna be a nice player in this league. But I don't know if he'll ever be the star people want him to be, being the number 3 pick. Everyone thought, Zion, him would definitely be stars in this league, but I don't see it with RJ right now, and that's me. I know that's like sacrilege. You can't say anything negative about RJ. You can't say you don't have buy stock in him because then you're like, oh, you're not a real blah, blah, blah. It's like, nah. Unfortunately, I have to take my stock out of RJ Barrett. I'm sorry, and he's a Duke guy. I wanna put all my I probably put too much stock in my Duke guys. But I gotta take the stock out. I gotta take the stock out with RJ. I'm just not buying it. But
put it in Brandon Ingram.
And that's another guy trade deadline. Someone needs to go, and go find him because he's quietly averaging 25 a game. You would have known. He's averaging 25.
And Zion is quietly putting on 25 a game.
Yeah, and Zion, Zion and Luka are. Oh man, Zion, poor Zion.
That was good. That was good. I think that was the best joke I've heard about it.
It's that New Orleans gumbo, man. It's that gumbo in New Orleans.
I saw a report that he's at 330.
I don't think he's that big.
Yeah, I think that's fake news.
I think that's a little.
I hope so.
It is. I think it is. There's no way.
So.
His knees, he wouldn't be able to walk.
Slimmer in another picture that was.
They show pictures that he looks a little slimmer. He may be 267.
I've seen him freaking cock diesel label 275. I'm just saying, if he's out of shape, is it really past 300? Is that really out of the question?
I will say this: the reason why my favorite color is red because he was wearing red when he looked slim. This why red's my favorite because you look slim in red, man.
You look slim in red. So we would suggest to Zion, don't wear the certain colors that make you look big. I feel like blue, like if you wear like a navy blue, you could look a little red.
Navy blue's
can
good.
make stand out. I
don't know. I'm not gonna pretend like I know what color. So help make
because Steven has a 6-pack and all that.
No, not even. Right? Not even remotely.
What are we talking about here, man?
Steven's built and all that. But yeah, taking my RJ Barrett stock out and Darius Garland, maybe just the Cleveland as a team because I just didn't see this coming from them. They're playing really good basketball and all that. But that's going to end the show, guys. I really appreciate you three gentlemen joining me for the show. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks for having us, man. And it's always a pleasure. Nicely, it was cool to be able to chop it up with you today, man. I believe it's the first time we got to do any work together. And Jerg, it's always a pleasure, my man.
Absolutely.
Yeah, great to be back on. Like I said, first OTB and first non-Bunts and Bruises pod I've been on in a while. So that was something. Even if I was still in NYC, it'd be something that I've been planning on because I noticed it's been a bit. It just took a little bit to realize it. But yeah, and same with Steven. First time I've ever been on with Nicely and just absolutely amazing. I expect nothing less from everyone at the network, but it was awesome to come on and chop it up with Nicely. And as always, Chris and Steven, when I get to talk ball with you guys, it's highlighted my day.
Oh man, appreciate it. Like I said, appreciate all you three gentlemen. You guys are definitely do some great work. So before we sign off and go home. Let's plug any work or projects you have coming up. Nicely, you go first, man.
This isn't coming out anytime soon, but we potentially could be getting Austin Reeves of the Los Angeles Lakers on the pod around February or March. And we're just trying to kind of do a better job of hosting more interviews. I know we do a lot of our podcast is more unique. We don't necessarily go into an hour-long podcast where we're really in depth and things of that nature. We kind of want to keep it a little bit shorter, just so maybe allow people to get in and get out essentially, and not have to dedicate their entire hour to listening to us talk about basketball and all that good stuff. But yeah, hopefully we can continue to get some more interviews in and put the Off the Ball Network on the map, man.
Sure, and that'll be a great get for you guys. I'll definitely be looking forward to that one. And just before I got some breaking news. Zion has been shut down indefinitely due to soreness in his surgically right foot. So some unfortunate news on the Zion front. It just seems like he just can't catch a break. Injury riddled 3 years. Hasn't even got to play this year yet. Missed a lot of time his rookie year and last year. So unfortunate news from Zion. And maybe I hope this isn't like another like Sam Bowie, Greg Oden, where we just don't see his career the way we want to. But some unfortunate news coming out of Pelicans camp, and Zion should be shut down for the foreseeable future with a setback from his foot injury. But Jerg, you got anything going on?
Trying to live life and adjust to my new sleep schedule soon. That's going to be fun. Yeah. No, nothing for now. I mean, I'll figure out what I can do. I will get back into writing. You can't keep me away from the hockey forever on this network. So I will get my hockey opinions and thoughts out there in some form. But just be on the lookout for that when I get this crazy schedule that I'm about to undertake down. But aside from that, I mean, I may not be co-hosting anymore, but make sure you check out Bunts and Bruises every Wednesday nights. Bars had, work, sadly, stopped him from recording this past Wednesday. Work sucks sometimes, but, assuming the world actually works in his way, everything will be fine this Wednesday. And, he's one of the best, and he's going to take Bunts and Bruises and just continue to shoot into the amazing beyond that of what that show is. So make sure you catch that. And all the amazing work that all the GOATs on this network do, you got to hit offtheballnetwork.com.
For sure. Steven?
Yeah. First off, just, again, Chris, thanks for having me. Nicely, Jerg. It was awesome to work with y'all again. But if you want to follow me, I'm most active on Twitter. You can look me up there at Stephen G. Hoops. Tomorrow, Kenneth and I are going to be co-hosting our Breaking the Game show. It's another NBA centric podcast, and we air also on Mondays on Dash Radio off the ball. Not off the ball. Nothing but net channel on Dash Radio for Off the Ball Network. That was hard to say. Maybe. But anyway, Kenneth and I, we're going to be talking NBA. We'll be there for Off the Ball Mondays on Dash Radio's Nothing But Net channel. Chris and I, this upcoming Friday, we have a show coming up for Draft Capital where we're going to be hosting Nathan Grubel, and we're going to be talking about our big boards. He recently just got done doing a segment with Chad Ford. Those, anything NBA draft related at all, you get to work with Chad Ford. You're doing it big. So Nathan's going to be coming on our show. We're going to be talking about our boards. I'm already working on my big board 2.0. My 1.0 is out on stephengillespie.substack.com. It got a lot of great reviews. I'm already working on my second one. It's going to have more players added to it, and obviously updated standings as far as who I think should be going where. That's going to be coming out at the end of the month, so stay tuned for that.
Yes, and I'm working on my big board too. That I think that's so much fun doing big boards and all that. That's the best.
It's constant work.
It's constant work, but I think the best part is just finding, we all know about the top guys, but it's finding those under the radar guys who might be future pros in this league. So that's the fun part of all that. And I'm excited to do Draft Capital, but like I said, appreciate you guys. You can find me at Off the Ball Pod on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Off the Ball Network, obviously, for all your sports needs. Go check that out, offtheballnetwork.com, OTB_network on Twitter, Off the Ball Network on Instagram, all that good stuff. And like I said, check out all these great guys' work. We got a lot of good content coming. Like I said, we got Off the Ball Mondays on Dash Radio. So we got a great lineup of shows, that you guys are definitely going to enjoy. We're putting out some great content. So excited about the future and all that. So on that note, guys, like I said, be well, be safe, take care. Don't be racist.
Don't be racist.
And can't wait for Off the Ball Mondays, and can't wait for everyone to check in everyone's work. So on that note, take care, be well, be safe.